Shalom. Welcome to our Erev Shabbat talk here from Eretz Yisrael. I'm Avraham Shira. We have a very beautiful piece of Zohar, Parshat Terumah, this week's weekly portion. And it's going to deal with, well, lions, Jews, Shabbat, and humility. But it starts out also giving us an example between the sun and the moon. You know, when God made creation and the sun and the moon, we are told, were of equal magnitude. I don't know if they were the same number of miles or the same temperature or the same molten mass, but we're told that they were the equal of power in the heavens. And the moon complained and said to God, "Can two kings rule the heavens?" And God said, "Oh, well, maybe you're right. God said to the moon, "Go and make yourself smaller." And now we have a very big sun and a very small moon. But for us, the moon is very helpful. You know, it kind of works with our monthly clock and keeping the sea in its boundaries and flowing the way it needs to. However, the issue that God took up with the moon was the issue of humility. Because let's say you're partners in a business, you and your partner, 50-50, and suddenly you bring in an extra 100,000 or whatever it is. Nowadays, 100,000 is not much more than the electric bill, right? Do you suddenly break the partnership and say, no, 50-50 is no good anymore. I just brought in this and I want more. A lot of people do that. A lot of times. And that shows an essential lack of respect for the agreement, for the covenant, if you will, between partners, and also for a certain amount of arrogance, because the wheel of fortune goes up and down. In a partnership, it does, and in creation too, apparently. But the moon needed to learn the lesson, of course, to teach us. Now, that's the beginning. The Zohar brings the verse from the first portion of the Torah, Breshit. And God made the two great lights. The Afal Gav and even though our friends, they're called here, but they're really the sages of the Mishnah and the Zohar, they explain it as two great lights are Ilen Shemen Ma'or, Shemen Lemaor. They call them the oil of the light and the oil to the light. Now you see, in one letter, they make this whole drasha. Because there's the Shemen HaMa'or, the oil of the light, which means, of course, the oil that gives light when it's lit. And then there's Shemen Lema'or, the oil that goes to the light. Now, the oil that goes to the light is receiving light, but it's not the light itself. Shalom Malka, Shalom Daniel. So you see, you have the oil that's burning, and then the oil that gives power to a light. And of course, one is giving and one is receiving. And of course, knowing the basic paradigm of the Zohar and all creation is the giving and the receiving between the male and the female forces of creation, which of course include the human race and our gender-separated society, if you will. Okay, that everybody has to give and receive, but the men we're designed to give, and women are designed to receive, and our bodies show us that, and our relationship to the world shows us that. Nevertheless, the Zohar goes on to tell also tells us about the world above and the world below. That the world above gives forth power from the Eternal One, and the world below receives the power of the Eternal One. One is male and one is female. Giving and receiving again. So the paradigm continues throughout creation. Wherever you look, you should be able to see giving and receiving, light and vessel. Wherever, everywhere, in every level of creation. And all the while that the male and the female are unified in one, getting along together, they're called together male. Just like we refer to God as male, but certainly God is not just male. It's absurd to think of God as male or female, because he created the concepts. He created the reality. He's above the distinction. Okay, and so, but because of the convenience of language, when we say him, we're really referring to male and female forces. And when they're one, we just opt out to the male pronoun, if you will. The male conception, but it's still a unified entity of male and female. Now, again, the alma da ila'i gadol, and since the upper world of heaven is called great, and beginning alma tata'adit chabar bahad beklala ikre gadol, and so too the smaller world, this little planet that we live on, in this little galaxy, in this little corner of the universe, we're also called great because we're part of the greatness. So you don't have to be you're the great one. You just have to be part of the greatness, and automatically you inherit that greatness and you sustain the humility. Now, well, what does that all have to do with Jews and lions and tigers and bears and all that? Well, listen. The Zohar gives us an example. But when the male and female are separated, which happens at a very minute and refined level during the 6 weekdays of work, during the 6 days of work, we don't say that the male and the female are completely unified until Shabbat. So when they're separated, these male and female forces, during the week, then they're called each on their own. Heaven is heaven, earth is earth, God is God, humanity is humanity. We don't refer to them as a unified entity. So there are shifts and transitions in the cosmic energy between the weekday and Shabbat. We all know this. We've been working with these ideas for years. And during the weekday, then heaven is called great still, but this world is called small. I heard something beautiful recently. Someone said, they saw a friend somewhere they hadn't seen for a while, and they said, "Oh, it's such a small world." And someone else said, "Well, it's actually a very big world, but it's run very well. So it seems small." When you understand how tightly God's providence rules our lives, then you see that it seems like a very small world. But it's very great and very precise. Run by the Creator. Now the ancients once said, because of the distinction between the great and the small, during the weekdays between heaven and earth, Hashem and us, and all the dyads of the paradigm, then the rabbis tell us in Pirkei Avot, be like the tail of a lion, velo resha de shulayav, and don't be like the head of a fox. Don't be like the head of a fox. Don't be like any part of a fox. But rather be like the tail of a lion. Why? There's I'm sure 1,000 different perushim from all the great rabbis from all the centuries. But the Zohar goes on to the dekadi hu kaima goy oriata, because when a person is attached or identified with the lion, which is always kingship, the Lion of David, right? The city of Jerusalem, its emblem is a lion. The lion is called the king of beasts, etc. So when you're identified with the lion, you're still called part of the lion. You're still part of the kingship of God, even if you're the tail. The Zanavadari, and a lion is one entity. It's not separate parts. So you see, we don't have to leap to the head of things to be part of the greatness of this creation. And that's a big problem for a lot of people, because our tendency is to think that we know that we know, and God is just a little bit bigger than us, right? That's a problem. But if a person is part and connected to the fox, afilu ihu resha, even if he's the head of the fox, resha de shual ihu, he's still a fox. He's not a being that embodies the kingship. A fox is a creature that sneaks around and steals from the kramim, it says in Shira Shirim, right? The foxes are the creatures that are very quick and able to get what they want and run. But the lion, he doesn't have to hide, and he doesn't have to sneak around to earn a living. And so this person is still a fox, even if he's the head of the fox. But another idea came to this, which I think will help a little bit with our worldview, is that if you're the head of something, you're the leader, you're the CEO, you're the president, you're the head of whatever entity or body that you choose. You're in front, you're the leader, you're responsible. And of course, your paycheck should be, equivalent to that. But when you're in the front of the bus, you don't see what's going on behind you. When you're in the front of the classroom, you don't see what's going on behind you. But when you sit in the back, then you see everything that's happening in front of you. And so when the idea of being the tail is also the idea of allow yourself to be last in line, allow yourself to be last in traffic, allow yourself to be last on the bus. You know why? Because you might get a better view. And that being last is a phonetic signifier, forgive that phrase, right? It's a symbol of being last means being small. But when you're allow yourself to be small, you get to see the bigger picture much easier. And when you're seeing yourself big and you're the leader and you're the head of things, then you might actually miss the bigger picture because you're sitting up front. I remember sitting in classes in college, and sometimes you want to sit up front because you want to catch what the teacher's saying. And sometimes it's really pleasant to sit in the back and watch what's happening in the whole classroom. So it's a different situation. Are you there to receive this, or are you there to receive that? Where are you holding in your spiritual path? Am I struggling because I want to be the head and I'm not the leader? Or am I struggling because I'm in the tail and I don't like being the tail? But you see, if you look at it worldview-wise, Yarim Me ashpot evyonim, King David said, that God will lift up the poor from the garbage heap. That's not a very nice phrase, but that's more or less what it means. And lir'ot b'shamayim, that when we go down to the lowest place, we're able to see the highest things. If you want to see heaven, don't stick your head through the window of heaven. Go down to the earth in the lowest place, make yourself small, and then you will have a glimpse of the highest place. And that's, be the tail of the lion. Don't try to be the head of the foxes or anybody else that's out running around in the middle of the night. Right? Be the head of the lion. Be the tail of the lion. And the head of the lion, well, that's God's business, who's the head of the lion. But it really affords us a chance to see the beauty, the unity of the entire lion, right? If you sit at the tail of the lion, you get to see the whole lion in front of you. You see the whole kingship in front of you. It's all one entity. But when you're trying to be at the head, you can't see everything happening behind you. And so it's a very interesting little take on the rabbi's words, because they're teaching us things that we didn't even know we needed to know. And that's the beauty of Torah, the new discovery of things we didn't even know that we needed to know. And so Shabbat, of course, is the time of the union where the small and the large come together, and the rabbis say that every Jew is a king on Shabbat. Why? Because you sit at your table and you get to decide the decisions that are usually made around the Shabbat table, etc. And the world is not coming to hack you. The world is not coming to get in your face on Shabbat. So that's like you get to be king, at least for a day. And every week we have Shabbat, and every week we have this union of the male and the female and all the dualities of the paradigm. And when you sit in the back, you can see the unity of the whole thing that's happening, and then your praise of God will be from a much different place when you see that really it is one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad. God bless you all. Have a great Shabbat. We'll see you next week on all the platforms, and new things, good things are on the way. All the best.